Hi everyone, I hope you had a great Christmas. As promised, just before the end of the year, I'm going to give you a breakdown of how I put the Toy Box Adventure Christmas with the Joneses, which I released on Christmas Day. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a thing slightly different to my normal tutorials. It's not going to be a step-by-step thing because there's so many elements, individual parts to put to this. It takes quite a long time to set up, but the toy box is actually quite basic in how I do it. So for example, you saw there I had a trigger area, okay, and I'll do a little summary to go through, and that trigger area sets this boat along a path, and it just follows along a path on a set course. Now at certain points along this path there are trigger points. So the first thing I'm going to do is, right, when we get to a certain part along the path, I'd like you to change the sky to the takeover, Syndrome takeover, which voila, perfectly does now. So we now have the crowd, right? We then go a little bit further. We then asked, can you just play a bit of thunder? Put a bit of thunder in the background, and you get the thunder noise crackling through. Okay, and then we get the path to stop. On the path stopping, we then activate Whirlpool, which was already running from the start of the level, and you'll see all the pieces moving around. Now I'm going to show you how we put this together, and it's a very simple process to build this. Now you look at that and go, what the hell, very simple? It is simple, but it is so time consuming, and I have to say it's a brain numbing activity of putting all the parts together. Now you'll notice there I had a little trigger area that when we go off there we'll set that across. But what I'm going to do basically is show you how you can build this effect, and it takes a time to do, but it's very simple and there's nothing too complicated. It's just putting a number of objects on a circular path. Okay, and it's very similar to my Avengers Q ship. And in this clip I'm just going to go through all the various elements of what you do, but I'm not going to do every single one because it took me hours, and I challenge anyone to give it a go. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start on an empty toy box, okay, and we're going to go straight down to our simple toys, and I'm going to pick you the elements that we need to create this tornado. So you need a vertical towel, which is a little tool block. We need 2 of those. We need a little wedge, ramp vertical, which looks like that on the end. And I'm never too sure which one of these items I need. It's one of these little support arcs. It's not that one, it's the one across. It needs to be a little bit further. It's the short one. That's the one, the support arc there, that one, that will do. And you do that and you move that up on the screen. So that's your support arc. And then the last one we do is the large panel, which will fit on the top. Ta-da! That's it, guys. That's your Whirlpool. Now all we've got to do is we've got to put enough of those pieces together on a path that will rotate round and give us the shape that we want. But that's all we need to do. So first of all, we need to create the circle arcs. Okay, so we're going to use these bricks to position where they are. Okay, so we know that shape has to be there, so we're going to put that in the middle of that box. That's where the dot's going to appear, because they appear bang in the middle when we put them on the path. Okay, and what we need is we need 5 sets of 3s going across. Now it's been a while since I've done a tutorial this year, and I felt I could have done this a little bit better, so I apologise here, but I wanted to make sure I finished the Whirlpool off and got at least a tutorial completed before the year's out. So we need 5 of these, so let's put these across. As you'll see going across here, which is all good. Okay, so there's our little 5 options. Okay, and on the end of there I'm just lining that up. That is where the other box is going to be. And obviously I need to go crosswards as well, so I need 5 going the other way from the centre. Yeah, so we get to the centre point here, which is this middle one, so that, there we go, that's the middle. So I've got 1 either side, so I do 2 either side there, and then I can do 2 one side and 2 the other. If that makes sense, I hope it does. Now obviously these blocks you're going to delete out, but it's just producing the circles. And if you're going to build this toy box or have a go at doing yourself a Whirlpool, do this first. Yeah, get this bit out of the way. This is the trickiest bit. Get this out of the way, and then you build everything around it, and you'll know what memory you've got left. Yeah, what memory you've got to build this particular part. Now we have a path tool going for the top disc. We have a path going for the slope, and then you'll notice, okay, there's just a little bit of a path on the screen. So you see I'm putting these across in here. These are little boxes, and you've seen me do this in many other tutorials where I put these boxes in place just so we can find out where they are. You'll see here I actually made that mistake because that part shouldn't be there. That should be the one square across. I didn't realise that until now. It's too late now. I've done it. I should have done that box to the right because it's got to be in line. It's slightly out. So you see, I've made a mistake. It should be a perfect circle. So be careful I haven't messed that up. Right. So you'll see here there's one and there's two boxes to the side there. Okay. So we're going to move this across. And we're just going to add another box now. I've gone the wrong side again. I realise that it should be coming inside, not outside, so that's wrong. I've had a little bit of a mare here, but obviously I looked at my record and I've done so much recording on it, I realised I can't go back and do it all again. And I went, look at that, it's going to be going downwards across, so that's what I did dawn on that one on the case. Now that square at the back should come back in, so that's correct here. But these three here should come back one. I did it the wrong way, so they need to actually come back across. So it's going to be a slightly odd oval shape. That will actually mess up your whole image altogether. Now, if you look at what these positioning, these are where we're going to create some paths. So it'll make more sense as you go through. So we're looking at the other options. That's that group, and that now is going to go on there. We're going to go from here, so it's across there, and then we want to go from that box. We want to go two down. So it's that item and then two down. Yeah. So it's two down from there, yeah, which is across to the screen. So we can do that on the other items. And I'm just getting a rough idea where they belong because you want them to be identical. Right, and on the other side we go one, two back, and then we go right across in the middle, and then two up. So two across and then two up will give me the place where the flat edge will be. And the reason why I did a flat edge was so that I could blend it in with the top level of the sea, which I'll show you as we go across the screen. So in this case here we've got two going across, one, two, then a little angle on the side, up two. Okay, which is cool. And I can do the same on this one. So two across and then up two. That's I feel I've made this more complicated than it needed to be. When I was doing it at the time, I was winging it. I just did one layer, then I thought I needed another circle, I needed another layer and stuff like that on the screen. Just double checking that's correct, which it is on that side. Cool. Right, so what we'll do now is we go on to unfiltered items and we'll get our little path tools up. Okay, right, so let's do the first one. Oh, my mistake there. Okay, right, so let's get back to my path tool. Right, so we're going to do this bit here. So we'll do the first box in the middle of that box. Okay, so it goes on the top in the middle, which is going to be on the top in the middle, which is that one in the middle. Just click your three dots all the way around. Like I say, that one should come back a bit. Should be there, but you wouldn't notice it that much when you've done it. So that's the one circle. You can circle out that. We're then going to do this one, which is in the middle of that square. Okay, so we go around. That wants to be in the middle of that square. Can't believe I did that wrong, but well. But it gives you an idea of what I did on the circles. Now, I mentioned that this is easy. This is the bit you do first, and it is not as complicated as you like, as it makes out. But obviously, as things build up and you start adding more elements to it, it does get very confusing after that. So always keep a note where your things are, and it's always positioning is also extremely important. Okay, so that's that one, so that's that group on. So we now have those three routes, and obviously we need one more, which is this bottom one down here, which happens to be the three boxes down, which is 6 from that top. So it's in that middle there, and we go basically 6 items down. So instead of doing boxes on there, do I do items across? Yeah, so I'm thinking, right, okay, so what I can do here, take one of these squares, and we'll just do 3 down straight underneath that. There's 3. And obviously once we finish, we're going to get rid of these boxes. And I kept the original objects there just so you can notice they're the shapes you're going to add to it. Now, one thing I didn't do, and I didn't change the colour of these boxes to the water effect until the very end. I want to try and reduce as much chances of the level from crashing, because there are a lot of paths that you're going to be creating, yeah, and that's just another thing you need to just be wary of. Now you get the gist of where I'm going to. This actually is not a perfect circle. It should have been if I'd lined them up right. But you're using those shapes to create your shape. And like I say, the main diameter going across starts off as 5. And what you do is you go to the properties of each of these paths and you change them to looped. Okay, once they're looped, they're done. And you go down the next one, change them all, and then I'll put the whole circle across. Now I will still at the end of this keep some of these boxes in so I can see it. And the one thing I was expecting to happen was that as I went through, because I was doing so many paths, I was expecting the paths to disappear. And because my paths that I use are very short, and these are probably the longest ones I do, they didn't actually disappear at all, which was really weird. I was expecting them to go. I am running it on a PS5, but even so, I don't know if that had an effect with it. I've never done too many paths before. So right, that is our tornado, yeah? That's the object that's going to be spinning round in that particular loop. Okay, so we can get rid of some of these boxes. I keep some of them on there just so I could focus on where they were going to go. But the key one is the green dots. Yeah, so you can get rid of some of those. I'm just going to delete those boxes out. Now, what we're going to do now is I'm going to do only in sets of 5, but they had different numbers on it. So the slope, the first slope that I did, that first arch slope, I needed 96 of those. Yeah. Now the next layer in, which is where you have the wedge, you don't need as many of those, and I believe it was 76 I needed for those, and then 76 for the other 2 options, and then the other item at the top, again you need more of those, but theoretically I tried to space that out. Okay, so we now have our tornado. So as long as we create these joins underneath the ocean, we're okay. So what you need to do is you need to make sure you're below the top level. Right, and that top level is here. Now, there are a lot of these you need to do, and like I said, for this one segment you need 96. So what I did here is I create a path of 3 squares. That's it, done. Okay, and then I count myself at 3 across, and I do another 3. Okay, and then what I did is I did basically in my version I did rows of 10, so I could keep a count of where I was. Okay, you need to do this all. Now I'm only going to do 5. To get the idea, but you're going to repeat this for every piece you need of that segment in that whirlpool. And like I say, for this first piece we need 96 of those, and 76 for the wedge and the bars, and there's another number, I'm not too sure the other ones. Okay, now when you create the paths, yeah, you're going to go through and you're going to switch. The first thing you do is when you create your little paths, so create your little set. Now I did 30 at a time, right, and then I went down the properties and switched them off. Yep. Keep going across. So the first property is all these paths need to be switched off. These are the only ones that need to be switched off. Yeah, but you go through here, turn them all off on the screen. Now again, look at my cue ship. This will give you little tips on here as well. So everyone you'll need, and I'll go through the big one when we finish. Yeah, and I would then carry on just daisy chain all these across. Now I'm going to attach one of those shapes to that path, and when it gets to that second square, as it moves along this path, when it gets across here, it's going to say, when that point reaches in that path, can we set the other path off? So it sets that off. And I've made sure that they're obviously the same number of spaces apart, so it all does the same thing. And you daisy chain this whole thing across. So when it does the next one again, and each time as it moves across, it sets the other one. Yeah. Switch it on. So all this says, when you get to that, when you reach that middle point, turn the next one on. Yeah, that's it. So that's all those. That's that part on. Now the next part is we now need the connector. So we have this part here, and this one again I did as 3 blocks. Now I'm going to do this slightly longer. I did it 3 as well, just so you can see. I'm only going to do it on your case so you can see how the parts all move together on one line, just purely for how the effects work. So what we're going to do now is when that point reaches that part there, so point on path, can we connect that? Connect trigger actor to path, and again you now got to do that for every single one. And remember, you have to repeat this for each part. So like I was saying, just for this one segment you need 96 of these. Yeah, if you're doing it on a diameter width 5. If you go larger, by the way, I don't know how much that works, so you could go larger, but there's more pieces you're going to need. And if you're doing this late at night, it's very tiring and it's just repetitive, and then by the way, your system can crash. That is why I made sure when I did this first. So the chances of it crashing are very little. So all those are now linked to that one path. I'm hoping this all makes sense, yeah? So we connect trigger and act to path. Yeah, connect trigger and act to path. So they basically go all across their own paths and then they join the master path. Now when it gets to the end of here, I'm then going to say, right, when you get onto here, new logic connection, when point reaches the path, can you now go to the tornado and can you connect it to here? Right, and I'm going to link it onto there and connect trigger and act to path. Now you may ask, why didn't you just do it to that case? I tried to keep my connections minimal so I don't have to keep going back and forth, because that sometimes gets it to crash. Yeah, so I kept them all contained, and then the last one, only one connection to the path. And I spaced through a part so I could line these up. So these now are the all objects, and you only switch this on because those paths have all been turned off. So you have to do it in this line. So each of these objects now going to get to the path. Now the thing with each of these objects, you must go to toy box path and you must switch it along the path, which rotates the object to be that way, which in fact happens to be bang on where we want. So new path connection, connect to path, toy box path, it goes across onto there, drops in, then we go down to properties of the path, and you change that path so it goes along the right way and it twists it all around, and you do that all for all 5. Now I'm just doing this all in one run clip, by the way. That's why I'm not going to go back and re-edit the thing that I've done. But so this took me 26 minutes or so to go through. We're 16 minutes into this clip already, right? But it took a fair bit to go through, and it's having that concentration. So if you're working with somebody, if there's 2 of you doing it, one does 5, 10, the other one does next 10, and so on. But just have a checklist of what you're going to do. So first of all, create the path. Second thing, switch all the paths off. Third thing, when they reach the second point, switch the other path on and daisy chain that across. Next bit, once they get to the end of that path, join it onto the master path, which is great. Then go back and add the object, and then set the object to be across, so it's orientated across the path. So that is my first set, and I would have done that for every single one of those paths. So I'd have done 90 number, whatever the number I was going to do on those. So now I'm going to repeat the same process again, and I'm going to do the same for the wedges, for the flat ridge at the top, and the other item on the screen. So we're going to do exactly the same again. So go back to my path tool. Yep. And then I'm going to break it 3 parts. And I try to keep them all together. You'll see when we go through the master one, we'll go through this, but I do my 3 breaks. Occasionally, by the way, you notice that, look, I pressed the button and nothing happened. I have noticed on a PS5 sometimes, but I don't know if it's to do with the trigger buttons, it doesn't register that clearly. But you're going to go through that exact same process for the wedges and for the other parts. Right, so I don't bore you, right, what I'm going to show you here is going to put this little wedge on the screen. Okay, I'm going to set that last one on, and we're going to rotate that. Okay, now the key thing we're going to do here, right, so I've done all the wedges on the screen, so the wedges are set up on there, so I've now got the wedges and I've got those segments. What I did was I would do 10, I would risk it, 10, maybe 20, maybe 30, and then I'd stop and save. Now when you save, this is one thing I noticed to do, right, and I noticed this question, when you come out, you look in the bottom right hand corner, you have like a spinning disc. Wait for the menu to stop, okay? I waited for that to stop, then when it disappeared, I pressed the options in the menu part. That did reduce when I was saving it, that did reduce my crashing. So be careful on that, just be wary on that item on the screen. Now, if you look at here, I've done the wedges and I've now done the flat packs. I'm now doing this block. Now, I didn't do this with my original one, but then after I was doing the clip, I went, this would have been so much easier, made me save myself on a little path. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double up these onto one path. Okay, so one's going to be lower down and one's going to be higher up, but I'm going to put 2 of them on the same path because they're the same shape. And you'll see when they get to the end, they move to that path. So what I'm going to do here is new path connection. I'm going to connect that to the path. Okay, what I'm then going to do is go to properties, yeah, toy box path. We're going to definitely make sure you have to do that with all the shapes, make sure it goes across the case. But the vertical height, I'm going to do -12. That's that one done, -12, right? And the other one I'll then stick on top. So there's 2 on the top there. So that would have reduced me some of my paths. So I'll do a new connection on here, put that one on the list. Drop that on the path. properties, but always go to properties, always switch that across. Now, one thing you got to do here, and one person who knows this more than anyone is JetBlast 190. Before you test this, you have to save, yeah, because you can't actually run it until you can't. Every time you run it, you can't go back. There's no going back. Once that tornado's done, you can't go. Oh, I've tested it now. What you have to do is save it, then do a test, then reload it back up, and then start again. Carrying on from the option there. It only works once. Very similar to the solo train, so be wary of that, yeah? But you'll see here, I'm dropping them down 12 and putting the other one on top and making sure they all goes orientated along the path, and keep doing that on the screen. And again, you do this one 76 times for the inner circle. The inner circle is slightly small, so it runs differently. And obviously at the end of this, when I changed it, I changed all the water effects, clicked on the square and any shapes, I then changed the water effect, which gives you that bubble effect. And just to recap on that, I didn't do that until the very end because I didn't want to know if that affected the memory or maybe might make it crash. I tried to keep it very low key until I was ready to do it. Right, so I'll just speed this up, but you'll see how we've done these shapes here, so just give you an idea of what we've been trying to do. Okay, so now we've got all the shapes connected. What I then need to do is I need to link these circles to the correct path. So I'll show you, they all join together, if I can pronounce that. Now again, when you get onto the end here, point which path. Now these ones go to a slightly different place, so I'm putting these ones down here. So they all double up down below. And you put the trigger connector to path, yeah. And that's going to go on. And then you do the same with all the others. Just check on the flat ones at the top. So new path logic when path reaches on path. These ones do at the top. Now obviously those shapes on this path I will then delete out, it's purely for my reference point, yeah? Okay, and they're all there on the screen. That one's got, I just double check that one's got a link, that's got a link. So they're all now linked up, which is perfect. Okay, so they're all set up. Now what we need to do is we need something to trigger it off. We need something to get those off, those all going, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do one of my next favourite tool, which is the path, is we need a logic gate. I see I was getting confused. Now I find when I'm doing these late at night I get really confused, so it's like it tires me out. Right, so we need a button which we're going to press, which will then set the thing off. Yep. But we'll create a logic gate because obviously we're going to delete the button once we go live, but the button is always to test how it works. And by the way, just doing a quick test here and there does work because it gives you the incentive, the hunger to actually just see what it looks like, and it does look really good. And that was the only thing that made, actually this is going to work. And when I did the first level, I went, it's too big. I did the 96 and I thought this is going to take too over. Then I was doing it in smaller segments and running it. And then once I realised it was like, no, this has actually looked quite good. And as it came together, it made me hungry to go and do it. But what I had to do is I had to break it down into spells, yeah? Now what you'll see here is, on this logic gate, I'm doing on output, can you turn on the first path, right? And it's the first path of each set. So can you turn this path on? Can you turn the other path on? Now I don't have to do the other paths because as those objects move, they will then get triggered and start moving down the path. Does that make sense? So the first one we switched off. When it moves on to the second point, it starts the next one off and so on. They daisy chain works, but I've kept each set separately. So I can control them that way. Do the same up here, so switch them all on. Now, obviously, before we can test this, we have to save it. Yeah, so put them on. So they all switch all those on. That will trigger the event, and that will get them moving around those items on the circle. Okay, and then what do we do? Do we test it now? No, you don't test it. Why? Because you need to save it. So we then do a save again, keep saving, don't fall into the trap. It'll break you, so I promise you don't do it. Okay, so make sure you press that save button, wait for the bottom to disappear off, and then you can do it. Okay, so let's fire the button. So we press that button there now. You'll now see them moving across, and it triggers each one across, and they all start moving along the path. When they get to the end of the path, they start coming across, and they start pulling across on the segment, and they just carry on building that group going round. Okay, now because the inner circle is smaller, they all spin round quicker, so there's actually going to be a different layering. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to jump into the actual master version here, And you'll see these are all those pieces. Now at first glance, they don't look that many. Yeah, okay. There are 76 straight bits there. There's 76 wedges here. But they're all linked to their various paths. Right, and they all link to their path. So when you go onto that path, it will set the second item off, which will trigger the next one, and so on down the list, which they'll do. Now, when we get to the end one here, the end one, you'll notice there's a path tool. It goes onto the next row and starts the other row off at the bottom, and that moves all across there, and that sets that one off, and they all go across, and so on, and it goes, links it through. Very simple, and they all link to this one path. So this item here, when it gets to the end, goes to that path across. When I click on that path, all those are linked to that item, and that then triggers those across onto the screen. Now, I say very simple, and as it builds up, it looks very complicated and gets very messy halfway through. So you need to keep a track of where you're going, but then it's all going to link to that particular path. Yeah. And then I'll discuss what I did with these other bits a bit later on in this clip. But let's show you how that works now on a larger scale. So I've taken the water layer off so you can see how this works, okay? So we're going to press the button and they're all going to start moving on exactly like before, but this is on bigger. So they're moving across and they start building up. As you can see them, look, they're chucking in across, and as they're going across, now the bottom part's moving quicker because it's a smaller circle, but they pick up on the screen. And like I said, the watercolor effect is quite good, and the fact that they're all running at 100 speed, by the way, because the smaller circle is smaller, they will go quicker because it's a smaller circle, and actually having different currents, a different way, it looks like different speeds to the tornado, so that actually works. And there you go, we've got them all going across. And to be honest, I was going to stop it, but it didn't seem to drain then when I'm spinning around, so I just left it on there. And you'll see now the flat segments here are still being built across, and that's where you get that little light glow of lines as they go across there on the screen. But that gives you the effect, and it just looks awesome. Now, admittedly, we've done loads of other logic in there, and again, but they're all very simple things. What tricks most people out is that it adds on top of the mess that you've already done. Right, so that's how we created the Whirlpool. So like I mentioned, there was a trigger area here, and that trigger area sets the boat off. So this is how we got the story going across. So it sets the boat on, and all I do is when you enter that path, turn this path on, and the boat starts to sail. Simple as that. Okay, as the path goes on, and we've got the boat just slightly underneath the line, yeah, as it goes across. Right, these are little points I've done scattered throughout the place. And like I mentioned at the beginning, when you get to one of these points, when you get to this point here, what I'd like you to do is, can you then turn the back changer so it goes to the storm? Okay, and then as you move further down, so we've got the storm, as you go further along, you get to this one, and this says, right, can we now got the storm, can you do a thunder sound? So it fires a thunder sound on the screen, so we get the thunder crackling going across, which is quite cool. And then we go, okay, and you'll move across, and you'll see there we've got other items across, so we want to stop it. So again, we go across to the next item, and then we're going to tell it to stop. So that did changed it to, does the various storm that you've got. But the other one did the screen changer, that did the storm. Now this one's got two options. This one says, right, can you do the lightning? Yeah, and also can you stop the path, so can you switch the path off? And the path then gets turned off. Which now means if I go up into here and go into that trigger area, that will trigger off and say switch the path back on, and the boat will carry on going. But it gives me time to have a look at the Whirlpool and see what I want. So the path then comes across, and then it basically gets to here, and it says, right, when you reach that point, can you jump on the path below? And I've got a new path for the boat, which just goes round. So it drops slightly and goes round, up and down in that layer. Now this is where it starts to get messy, because we've got all those little paths here. Now I'm adding another path for the boat. Yeah. And I've got all these shapes, and you have to design these shapes, by the way, where you think where the landscapes are. Then I've put a crown on there and say, right, when the crown comes on, yeah, when you collect that, what I want you to do here is I want you to close this gate, okay? And when you close that gate, what that means is when you go through that trigger area, if it's blocked, the next time you go across, it means you've done your mission, which means you've come back out. Otherwise, if you're going across, it doesn't do it. So that little gate there means, well, when it's blocked, And when you drop on there, the boat will drop onto this path, leaves it, and goes all the way across onto here. And I did something very similar with the spaceship following the in the Han Solo level. So if you do the Han Solo level, you'll find how we've done that on the screen. So these are little logic gates to switch those on and off. Yeah, so I've done that on the screen. Now I did multiple of these items of these gates because I was going to have like the bubbles of water appear on the screen. And these things, by the way, you can put these on paths. And what I got them to do then is that once I've killed the boss, you switch those paths on and they move to the end of the path. So I set the logic them to be one way and stop. Now this one here, because I needed it in the middle, I turned that on, and what that does is that then jumps from there out the way onto the screen. So it's not switched on, it goes across and then moves on the other side of the screen. So it's connected to that path. And if you look at the property of those, but I didn't want them in the way until the mission was done, because you can come straight back out and you'll see it just one way and stop. So I didn't have to do any logic to say don't go off. But that only happens when you kill the boss kill. When you kill the boss, then those are switched on and they move into place, which is this kill I've got at the top here. And I've placed that so it falls directly onto the top of the screen. And the last thing I need you to look at, I've got these 4 little columns. You'll see down the side, you see those 4 vertical columns, these going straight up. They deal with the level of the water, so those are paths where I've got shapes going to them. Yeah, and you'll notice here, this path here has got all these shapes connected to it. Yeah, and they're all turned off. And what that does is when I turn that on, that has all those 9 squares. These 9 squares just move down to the bottom and then become my base of the land where I'm working on. So that's related to that square. So they just go down here and they stop at the bottom, and that creates my level. So then I have a footer, so I have a seabed to land on. And again, same thing again, there's the 9 boxes, and again, I had 4 of those. Right, so we go back into the ship, let's see how it works, right? So let's just jump back onto the ship. We've got the Whirlpool done. Now I hope this tutorial gives you an idea. You can't do it step by step, it takes a little while. So we go up here, go through this logic gate. That will now trigger the boat, so we see a little whirlpool all spinning round. And again, not very much, just a lot of pieces to do it. Okay? And that sets it going across. Now, this is going to come across. Now if you look carefully, the boat just shudders very, very gently, and that's because it's dropped onto the path below. So it comes along, okay, as it moves on, it's going to drop down onto another path, and that path is a circuit path. So 3, 2, 1, and I tell you when. Just flickered a second there, so you don't even notice it, and we now are on a loop going round, and we'll just stay on there forevermore. So even if I go through that logic gate at the top there, it won't do anything because we haven't collected the crown, which hasn't closed the gate. So basically we can jump down into here, so fine, and we can drop into there on the screen. Now we can do other things with this. The only thing you can't do, by the way, is you can't use those cannons while the boat's moving, which is really annoying. So we need to go and grab this crown, and then Barbossa turns up. And this time he acted a bit differently, he was a bit more interactive. He then goes and hides in. So if you look at the bottom, what I'm walking on that platform bottom, and I positioned the terrain tools, and they're all, by the way, the rock formation I've chosen is the Dusty Field. If you look at Bowtie's guy, How to Build Skull Island, those rocks look quite good. But I made sure that they weren't halfway through, so I could set those bases up, and then you have to wedge them to guess where they're half sticking out. But that's like the top of a tower, which actually goes lower. But because the ground has stopped there, it doesn't actually matter. I thought I was going to get killed here. Very close. He's going to get me in a minute. Nearly got me. Got him. Okay, now when he dies, you'll now see these tools come in. And I was then trying to work out where to position these, where to move these across, and this was just, again, trial and error, looking where they go. And then I found out that when I fire this, I could land on that ridge, and by that ridge was so I could jump onto that item. Again, it took a few times because I had to keep testing it. If you don't do it right, you don't always do it. So this just shows you when you can mess it up. So we jump up again, and on the swing, got it, right, so we now jump. Okay, now these two should fit quite nicely across. Right, now this is the cool thing here, right? And this is what I quite like when you do testing as well. See the moving one across the top there? Never planned that. That was a mistake. I forgot to do the one-way and stop path. Yeah, I was going to do it so it was in between those two ledges and then you had to jump on it. And I realised that it was a mistake. And then I went, actually, do you know what? Having it moving, it actually made it difficult challenge. That was purely accidental, but I just thought, look, I think it works quite good. So I was going to stop in between those two ledges and you had to jump across to do it. And if you missed it, I thought, well, actually, it's even better. If you don't time your jump, so if I jump it too soon, I'm going to jump across and get in there at the right time. So I missed it, which means I've got to do the whole flipping thing again. So that was the idea of that, and that was pure, like I say, it just had accidentally when I worked, I went, actually, I quite like it moving. And that's because on that group, I did not change the path, which was one way and stop. That one just kept on looping through. And I went, actually, do you know what? That's not such a bad thing. All right, square into, oops, again, made another mistake. Now, this is quite handy because I fall through here and then it sends me straight back, so that wasn't too bad. And also, it's getting the position right so that when I did mess up, I didn't actually get onto the sea. That was the key thing. I didn't want to be hanging on the sea. All right, last time, and we jump up, and that is it, and we're done. Now I've got to go up. What I'll do now is, once I'm up here, I will go through the setup. I go through that trigger area, which will then move me off that path. Once I'm off that path, the boat will drop off, and then we'll continue across. Now, what I've also done on the path there, I then switch all the vertical ones. I switch them off, and then I reset them. Then I turn the landscape back to the castle one, and then I turn the storms off effect, so I then go to switching all those effects off. So as we're going across here now we're back onto the ship will shudder just a little bit, just a little flick there. Okay, and what I'll do now is as I go to one point across the path here along the bottom, I will say those 4 vertical things where the platform done, can you switch them off now? So switch them off, and then I'll say, right, what I can do is, can you now stop the storm so that the lightning comes off? So I'll stop the effect of the lightning, so we don't have more lightning. And then what I can do is, can you then bring the platform back up? So reset some plays, but because the paths are turned off, they go on it. And that is it. And the last thing to do is change the landscape back to normal. That is how I created that level. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it a little bit condensed. My last thing to do, everyone, have a happy new year, and I'll get more clips out to you very soon. Take care, guys. Bye.